Welcome back to the deep dive. Thanks for sending in all those notes and articles on workplace credit theft. I mean, wow, the amount of material really shows this hits a nerve.
It really does.
So today, we're diving into your sources to unpack this, let's call it universally annoying experience.
Mm-hmm.
The credit thieves at work. You know the feeling, right? You do all the hard graft, and someone else just waltzes in for the standing ovation.
That's exactly it. That's the core problem we're getting into. Being that person who spends, hours doing the really detailed, tough behind-the-scenes stuff, only to watch someone else kind of step into the limelight and grab all the recognition. It's a unique kind of workplace hurt.
Definitely. So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack this really common challenge. We're going to explore why it happens, and crucially, we want to give you some actual strategies, things you can do to make sure your work gets seen and, celebrated. We're pulling insights straight from the stuff you shared on handling these, sticky situations.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's paint that picture, that infuriatingly familiar scene. You've literally spent your entire weekend polishing off a super critical client pitch deck. You're wiped, but, proud.
Yeah. Done. Finished.
Then Monday morning meeting rolls around. A teammate says maybe one buzzword, just throws out one term, and boom, they're hailed as the visionary. It feels like a physical blow sometimes.
It really does. And what's interesting looking at the psychology and the sources we reviewed is that this kind of thing, this recognition theft, it can honestly feel worse than like a personal insult sometimes.
Right.
Seeing your actual blood, sweat, and maybe what felt like 73 versions of that Google Doc.
Easily 73.
Just hand it over to someone whose big idea was, I don't know, maybe make the font bigger. It's just, it's agony.
Yeah.
And then you're trapped, aren't you? Because if you try and speak up right then, you instantly feel kind of petty.
Totally. Or like you're not a team player.
Exactly. Like you're undermining everyone. It's a real bind.
That feeling of needing to almost like pull out a calculator. Well, technically I did 97.3% of that plus emotional labor. It just feels so belittling.
It does.
But okay, beyond how it feels personally when we looked at the patterns in the sources, is it bad luck? A few bad people? Or is there something, I don't know, more systemic going on? Why does this keep happening?
That's the big question, isn't it? And what our deep dive into the research suggests is that, there might be bad actors, but often there's a systemic thing happening too. The sources talk about stuff like fundamental attribution error, which basically means people watching tend to give credit for success to the visible person, the one talking, and they overlook all the quiet behind-the-scenes work. It's not always about who talks loudest, but it is often about who gets more airtime.
Ah, okay. Airtime versus actual input.
Exactly. So it becomes this potent mix of, office politics, maybe poor communication structures, and these kind of unconscious biases rewarding visibility.
So does that mean if you're maybe naturally quieter, or you just prefer to get your head down and do the work without, shouting about it?
Mm-hmm.
Are you basically setting yourself up for this? Is being quiet a trap, the sources mentioned?
It absolutely can be. Yeah, the sources point this out repeatedly. Being quiet and humble while sounding virtuous can genuinely lead to you carrying the whole team's weight but getting none of the recognition. It's kind of like those nightmare group projects back in school,
Remind me.
Right. Some people they never really moved on from just sticking their name on slides they barely looked at. The research definitely suggests that, look, collaboration is vital, but you also need to know when and how to flag your own contributions. It's a balance.
Those group project flashbacks are too real. Speaking of specific examples, was there one concrete story of credit theft from the materials we looked at that really jumped out at you?
Oof, yeah, there was one. This person had written this entire automation script for internal reports. Really complex, took ages, loads of careful work. And guess who ended up demoing it in the big team meeting? A guy who, and I'm not trying to be mean, but honestly, probably couldn't spell Python without autocorrect.
Oh, no.
He gets up there, all confident, saying, yeah, we've built this tool that does X, Y, Z, while the person who actually did build it was just sitting there feeling like, well, the source described it as feeling like a ghost in the shell.
Wow. Ghost in the shell.
That's evocative.
Total invisibility, just erased from the narrative. It was a really stark example.
Yeah, that feeling of just not being seen for all that effort. It really hits home, the emotional impact. So, okay, thinking about that, let's pivot to the practical stuff. What can you, the listener, actually do about this? How do people start reclaiming their work and making sure they get noticed?
Right, this is the empowering bit. Let's pull out the best strategies from the sources. There are about 5 key things. First one, document everything.
Yeah.
Seriously. The sources really stress keeping your own meticulous record. Emails, drafts, version histories, and docs.
Like a paper trail. Exactly. Even screenshot stuff if you have to, like it's fluctuating crypto prices. You want proof you can point to. Verifiable ownership. That's step 1.
Makes sense. Keep the receipts. What's next?
Second, speak up politely. This one can feel awkward, but it's crucial. You need to actively state your involvement. The research suggests using positive phrasing like, happy to share I worked on this part, or building on the work I did on X. You can say this in meetings, in emails.
So, not aggressively, but clearly.
Precisely, because realistically, no one's just going to hand you credit on the plate. You often have to, claim it. And the sources show this is usually way more effective than just hoping someone notices.
That speak up politely bit. I can see how that's tough for people.
Yeah.
What are the hurdles? Like, why do people hesitate? And what do the sources say about getting over that?
Yeah, it's a common feeling. Usually it's fear, right? Fear of looking arrogant or like you're bragging or just self-promoting in a cringy way. But the sources kind of reframe it. They say, look, talking clearly about what you did isn't arrogance. It's just transparency. It's demonstrating your value. It's actually a professional skill you need.
Okay, thinking of it as a skill, not just ego.
Exactly. Which leads to the third point. Loop in leadership. Now, the sources are clear. This isn't about running to the boss to complain or snitch.
Right, not tattling.
No, it's about communicating your value transparently before there's an issue. Use your regular one-on-ones with your manager. Proactively tell them about your specific role, the impact you had on projects. Make sure they know what you're doing.
So they have the context already.
Precisely. It heads off potential credit theft at the pass because your contribution is already known by the person who matters for reviews and promotions.
That's smart. Proactive, not reactive.
Oh.
Okay, what's number 4?
Fourth, visibility perfection. This is a tough one for perfectionists, but the sources highlight that sometimes the most visible contribution gets the credit, even if it wasn't technically the absolute best or most perfectly polished piece of work.
Ugh, that's annoying, but probably true.
It often is. So what does that mean for you? It means show up, be present in meetings, share your progress updates regularly, and crucially, present your own work whenever you possibly can.
Don't let someone else steal your slides again.
Exactly. Don't give them the opportunity just because you were too busy perfecting behind the scenes. Get out there. And finally, number 5, don't be the martyr.
Okay, explain that one.
There's a difference between healthy humility and just being invisible. Being the silent workhorse who never asks for anything might feel noble, but our sources are pretty blunt. It is not helpful for your career or, frankly, your own sense of satisfaction.
Yeah, burnout city, probably.
Totally. You need to distinguish between being humble and just letting yourself become detrimentally invisible. Your hard work deserves to be seen. The sources really hammer this point home.
Yes, absolutely yes to all of that. And we really do need to just normalize saying, I did this, without immediately feeling guilty or like you have to say, oh, but it was the whole team, if actually you did do that specific thing.
Right.
It's not about having a big ego. It's just accuracy. It's accountability.
Perfectly put. Confidence isn't the same as arrogance. Think of it more like insurance against invisibility. Self-advocacy, when it's done well, is just a critical part of growing professionally and getting the recognition you've earned. The research backs that up.
So for everyone listening, if you're one of those people doing the real work, the stuff behind the scenes, pouring your energy into projects, quietly solving the hard problems, just know we see you. We really do.
We absolutely applaud you. And if you find yourself in a workplace that only seems to clap for the showboats, the loud ones, and never for the people actually building things, well, our deep dive suggests maybe it's time for you to start clapping for yourself, loudly.
Because of that life you don't post online, right?
Yeah.
All that unseen effort, the hours, the quiet wins nobody else witnesses, that deserves celebrating. It's often the real engine driving things forward, even if it's hidden. It's incredibly valuable.
Couldn't agree more. And hey, if anyone does try to pull a fast one and take your credit after you've listened to this, maybe just casually send them a link to this deep dive. Perhaps, with a slightly passive-aggressive smiley face emoji.
I like it.
Might just make them think twice next time.